Okay, welcome to the Walter Bosley channel, and I'm guessing that you'll notice my fade is weird on the image behind me. Um, I'm working on adjusting that. I did an update on my OBS, and so the green screen is at least appearing. The image is appearing now. So let me say hello to everyone in the live chat. Now, I'm assuming that you're hearing me. I'm not wearing my headphones. So, welcome everyone. And looks like we're back, trying to get back on schedule with the Wednesday show. And let's go. Thank you, Jackpot. Thank you, Johnny Side, and Philip. Let me welcome everyone who's here. We have Jackpot, Philip Blair, Billy W, and Shane Walker. And we have, did I say Johnny Side already? No, I don't think I did. Well, you gave me the sound check. So that was the mention. Oregon Music Fan is here. D. Dorothy is here. Old Gaffer. And let's see who else. Okay, Kenneth Johnston. And others will file in. Stephen Van Fossen, Renee, Mrs. Johnny Side. Welcome, 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 everyone. Regulars and newbies. I'm sure there's people out there who are watching who aren't in the live chat. And I tend to like this dramatic lighting instead of everything looking like perfect studio lighting. Being a cinemaphile and a filmmaker myself, sometimes I tend to like interesting visuals. You can see me, I'm in focus, you see an image in the background. So what if the lower edges are kind of weird? It gives it that silent movie era mystique visually, I think. And speaking of the cinematic look, today's topic is a return once again to another episode of the discussion involving Lost Horizon. Now, those of you who are new to the Walter Bosley channel, a couple of years ago, I did an episode on the film Lost Horizon by Frank Capra. And, the basics of that film are that a small group of folks, I think there's one American in there, two Americans perhaps. No, I'm pretty sure it's one. And some Brits are caught in the fictional city called Baskool, which is supposed to be Baku, I think is what it's called. And they're escaping the crumbling order going on there. In other words, war is breaking out. There's some type of military conflict. And the airfield that they're at is being besieged by the invading force. And so they just barely in the nick of time make it aboard an aircraft. And instead of flying in the direction they're supposed to be flying to get back to Europe and England and such, they end up going, I believe, farther east into the Himalayas. And of course, the airplane crashes in the snow, and they are met by a group of what appear to be Sherpas who lead them through this treacherous terrain in the Himalayas, through kind of a gate, a natural archway gate, into this incredible valley where the weather is temperate and there's tropical flora, and essentially it's Shangri-La. We've all heard of the meme of Shangri-La, the place that's, a paradise on earth where people live a very, very long time, and they live peacefully in moderation. That's the theme of the film and the book, that they live in moderation. There are no fanatics like we have in our world today. I think you guys would agree that the fanatics are really who's driving the troubles we have, or keeping things, on fire and exacerbated. Well, they don't have that in Shangri-La, and that's always been with us throughout human history. There've been the zealots who get all fired up over what they believe, and a lot of times those beliefs are good things, because a zealot can be zealous over some positive things and be the force that fights a tyrant, right? Unfortunately, all too often, zealots really just ruin it for everybody else. Um, so, this is one of the themes in Shangri-La, how they live. And in the story, there's the gentleman Conway. He's the lead character of those who are taken to Shangri-La on purpose. You find out that the airplane was hijacked by a pilot from Shangri-La because the High Lama wants to bring the man Conway to Shangri-La. Now, I don't want to ruin it for you, but the movie's been out since the mid 30s, and we've talked about it here. So if you don't want to hear a spoiler, plug your ears right now, because here it comes. I'm going to give a spoiler. You ready? Too late if you haven't plugged your ears or turned your volume off. The High Lama, after 270 some years, I think, is going to die, and he wants Conway to replace him. He believes that Conway is the man, the right man, who's tired of the outside world. And aren't we all at times tired of this world we live in? Not every day, not all the time. But he's perfectly suited to replace the High Lama. But he rejects it because members of the party, one in particular, Mallinson, just is a whiny butt. He's a malcontented little bitch of a man. We have a lot of those today, particularly in America. We have like a whole generation of malcontented little bitch, males. I will not call them men. Guys who couldn't get over daddy rejecting them, and they embrace narcissism. And that's what this character is, this Mallinson guy. He's just a whiny little bitch, happens to be in a male body. And don't get me wrong, the females in the story are a lot stronger than him, okay? So it's not an indictment on the ladies. It's this guy, he insists on going back. He insists on taking the girlfriend that he met there, who herself is a whiny little bitch, malcontent. I mean, how can you not be happy in Shangri-La? But she's not. And so Conway feels compelled to help this man at least get out to where he can meet people from the outside world and get back home. Well, unfortunately, by leaving, he's not able to get back so easily. And of course, Mallinson, the whiny little bitch of a man, it figures that Mallinson has a military rank, but I think by this point in the story, he's working in the diplomatic corps. Having worked in national security for 20 years and worked around State Department with and around State Department people from time to time, it's fitting that a whiny little bitch of a man would be a diplomatic corps guy, Anyway, so Conway regrets leaving, and he's determined to get back to Shangri-La. And that's part of the dramatic structure of the story. He realizes that that's really where he belongs. And it's a really awesome movie. Excuse me a minute. I'm getting, it looks like, a call in the middle of my live stream from people who should know better. Excuse me a moment. Hey, I'm in the middle of my live stream. What can I do? Allow me to pause. No, they're in here. Okay, sorry about the interruption. There was some business item I was supposed to hand off to Liliana, my kid, before she goes to work at the restaurant where she's a manager and chef. Anyway, you guys can hear me. I got the mic on the proper thing, right? Hey, if you're new to the Walter Bosley channel, we're not uptight. And so anyway, nice cold water because it's a very hot day. Again, sound check. You guys can hear me, right? Because I was pushing this button and it wasn't always. I just want to make sure I didn't mess with the knobs here. Thank you, Jackpot. Thank you very much. Okay, so back to Lost Horizon. It's a really cool movie. It's one of the best movies of the 1930s, and it is one of my favorite novels. Now, here's the thing. Lost Horizon is based on the concept, the idea of Shangri-La, the paradise on earth where the enlightened, the illuminated, earn their way in to live away from this lower, lesser world. Now, look, in talking about these themes, we can be critical of the world we live in, but I'd like to point you to another film, which is a big favorite of mine. In fact, both versions of this film from a novel by W. Somerset Maugham, and that's The Razor's Edge. Let's not forget the lesson of The Razor's Edge, okay? Larry Darrell, who goes off after World War I, he's just numb, he just lost his desire to live in the world, and he goes off to so-called find himself, right? So he goes to the East and he embraces Buddhism and goes off to a monastery. But then comes the day after he's gone off away from this evil, rotten, no good, nasty world. And he's up in the monastery in the Himalayas, and everything's wonderful and perfect, and there's no distractions and all that. But it dawns on him one day. And he goes to the High Lama, the monastery where he's at, and he says to the High Lama, he says, "It's true, isn't it? It is easy to be a holy man on top of a mountain." And the Lama smiles and says, basically, yeah, you get it. Really, you have to go back into the world because you should be an example to others. The point is, and I've said it before, as imperfect as our world is, it is exactly what it's supposed to be. Because the one thing we can change is ourselves. Okay? Don't try to go out there and change the world. You can impact the world, you can influence the world, but don't think you're going to change the nature of reality in the world, because you're not. The lesson is to change yourself and let those changes be good for others, right? Now, this is also a theme and a lesson in the novel Lost Horizon, a little bit more emphasized in the novel than the film, because the High Lama eventually, he tells Conway and all, in one of their many meetings, he tells him, look, the day is going to come when we do have to embrace the world. The day is coming when we have to kind of step into the world, let ourselves be known so that we can help lead people back to a calm, moderate, peaceful path, non-destructive. So even in Lost Horizon, it's really not about permanently escaping everybody else in the world because they're so bad and we're so perfect. Okay, that's if that's what you take away from it after reading the novel, then there's a particular chapter that you've not read. So, always remember, keep in mind when you're reading this story and stories like it, keep in mind what Mom wrote in The Razor's Edge. Okay, very similar story, but it takes Father Perrault, that's the real identity of the High Lama of Shangri-La. It takes that particular message to a further logical conclusion, and so there's Lost Horizon, as written in the novel by James Hilton and made in the film by Frank Capra. Okay, so this film always, when I first saw it, I was in the Air Force in the late 90s at Wright-Patterson, as you guys know. And that was the first time I saw Lost Horizon. Now, I was familiar with its existence. I had seen snippets of it, being a film fanatic. But I had never sat and watched the film until, I think, 1997. And I didn't read the book till then. I got the book then and read it and really liked it. I had fallen in love with the film The Razor's Edge, the Bill Murray one, when I was in college at San Diego State. That's when it came out in 84, I think, mid-80s. And of course, all the people who are, dude, give me another beer. Oh, this Razor's Edge movie is so boring because Bill Murray is not funny in it. Yeah, admittedly, Bill Murray, oh my gosh, did a movie where, it's more for people who can actually read rather than just party. No offense, there's a lot of people who are intellectual, very smart and accomplished who like to party. But you get my point. It wasn't a success, but it really reached out to me. In my last year of college, the summer of 1985, because I finished college in December of 85, summer of 1985, I had to finish up my elective credits. So when I was back here in the San Bernardino Valley, I went to, it wasn't Crafton. I took my class in golf at Crafton, but at San Bernardino, at Cal State San Bernardino, I took a course in religions of the world. Now, you guys know that I elected to stop going to church at 12 years old because I just, churchianity just doesn't appeal to me at all. I'm not condemning it. It just doesn't appeal to me. Well, I condemn rabid recruiting and forced conversion. I condemn that wholeheartedly from any religion. Worship all you want. Have your fellowship. Do not tell another human being that they must be a member of your church. If you can tell, that pisses me off when people do that. But anyway, I'm still interested in these spiritual things, interested in God and religions and stuff. So I took this course, and the professor, fascinating guy, he had spent several years of his life in India. And as you guys know, that's what turned me on to India. The veil was lifted. The scales were removed from my eyes. I had to go to India. I still have to get to India. The closest I've been to India is Islamabad, which is just so close. That's Pakistan, which used to be India. Doesn't it figure that the shitty part, it used to be India, but it became the shitty part, known as Pakistan, was called British India for a while. Once again, there's the British elites and political class, responsible for something that sucks. Anyway, been close, haven't quite got to India yet. But anyway, I was just I became fascinated with India. So this led to things like a deepening interest in the East. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very much like most of you, I think, a product of Western civilization. I'm an American to the bone. Okay. Duh. And I like that. I've seen much of the world. There's a lot of places I really, really like. Like most people, I like best and most my own home country. But, I'm not going to beat people over the head with that. But anyway, deeply interested in India, and particularly, its history the farther back you go. More of the ancient history and things like that than the recent. Not that didn't come out right. Just more of the ancient history. So imagine my surprise when I discovered just this morning, because I was looking at some other stuff yesterday for today's show, but this morning I learned that there, of course, is a Vedic version of the Shangri-La story, right? And I thought, ooh, I've got to look into that because I'm interested in these things. So I found this city. Oh boy, hold on a second here. Let me pull it up. I'm already mispronouncing it and I don't have it in front of me. Siddhashrama. Okay. Siddhashrama. Siddhashrama. It has another name. Let me go to it. I want to try to pronounce these things right. Forgive me if my East Indian friends forgive me for my mispronunciations. Gyangunj. Siddhashrama, popularly called, I'm reading this now, off of everybody's favorite Wikipedia. Siddhashrama, popularly called Gyangunj, is considered as a mystical hermitage, which according to a tradition is located in a secret land deep in the Himalaya, where great yogis, sadhus, and sages who are siddhas live. This place is also revered as the mystical land of Shambhala by Tibetans. Shambhala being probably the main inspiration for James Hilton's Shangri-La of Lost Horizons, which is an ongoing theme here if you're coming in late and you're new here. According to another tradition, the Siddhashrama is located in the Tibetan region nearby the Mount Kailash or Kailash Parvat. And let's go there. Mount Kailash is a mountain in the Nagari prefecture, in the Tibet autonomous region of, I hate having to say this, that Tibet is part of China. China. It lies in the Kailash range of the Trans-Himalaya in the western part of the Tibetan plateau. The Trans-Himalaya. There you go, triggered people. There's that T word for you. But that means across the Himalaya, okay? It means across. It's, a prefix. In the western part of the Tibetan tableau. The peak of Mount Kailash is located at an elevation of 6,638, meters. That's 21,778 feet. North of the western trijunction of the border between China, India, and Nepal. So, it's an interesting place. And if you look at Mount Kailash, I think that's the one I had a picture here. I was going to set up some pictures to show you. Malia showed me how to do that a couple weeks back. And like a dummy, I didn't prepare my photo file. But if you look at it, it kind of looks like the what's called the bent pyramid in Egypt. So look that up. So I found it interesting that in the Vedic scriptures, this Siddhashrama is talked about. It's talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata. Now, if you're interested in like the talk about, everybody talks about Vimanas in our community, the flying machines, whatever. I got this many years ago. Oh, you can't see it. Let me see. Oh, where can I put it? There we go. I have this edition of the Mahabharata. Look at that. Yeah. I got this, my gosh, almost 30 years ago, I think. And, I'm going to tell you right now that I decided that I'm going to read it just from beginning to end. I've always referred to it in parts, but I think it's time that I read the Mahabharata. So this is a good edition. I happened to be in an Indian restaurant with it shortly after I got it, and the young man who was working there, his parents owned the restaurant, he lit up when he saw that I had that with me, and he said, "This is a very good edition." This was years ago. Let me move my Mahashka over there. So it's in several of the Vedic scriptures. This place that is like Well, it's the Indian version of Shangri-La. So again, James Hilton, being a student of all this, let me see if I can find. Here we go. Let me tell you about James Hilton. This is from the Himalayan Journal, okay, of the Himalayan Club. And it's a good article. It's by Rasul Sorkabi. And I will put the link. I'm trying to be a little more interactive here, guys, with my sources and stuff. I'm gonna put the link right here so you guys can check out what I'm looking at. Okay, there it is. And this is the article, The Crafting of a Tibetan Utopia. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but I'll touch on parts of it. Let me get to James Hilton. Hilton was born in 1900 in Lancashire, England. He went to Cambridge. He got a bachelor's degree in history and English in 1921. And literature, history, and music were to remain Hilton's main interest for the rest of his life. This is the author of Lost Horizon. He became a journalist working for British newspapers. He wrote Lost Horizon in 1933, and it was his, get this, it was his 9th novel. He had written and published 8 novels previously, but his 9th one, there's that number, was the magic one, Lost Horizon. It was his most successful and the one he's famous for. In his previous 8, but Lost Horizon really took the reading world by storm. The people loved it. After the immense popularity of Lost Horizon, Hilton moved to California in 1935 to work in Hollywood. He had a couple of marriages that didn't work, but then he later reunited with his first wife. And he spent the rest of his life in California. Now, I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more because, as you know, Talbot Mundy, another great writer who I've talked about here, a writer of the Mysteries of the East, he lived in San Diego for a time. And I've looked into that. I've even included, if you've read my time travel novel, I Will See You in Time, Talbot Mundy appears in the novel. He doesn't just walk on, and he's like a character who's, in a handful or so scenes. So Mundy's in the time travel novel. He died in Long Beach in December of 1954. What's interesting is there's a picture of him. Probably should have shared that. Now, I'm reading again from this article of the Himalayan Club at HimalayanClub.org, the link that I put below. This part of the article talks about his crafting of a Tibetan novel. Hilton finished writing Lost Horizon at Woodford Green in April of 1933. He had never visited Tibet or the Himalaya, but he had read a great deal about the place and its history, religion, customs, and travel logs. Okay. He said in an interview in 1936 that he cribbed his Tibetan material from the British Museum Library. In the early 20th century, the mysterious and forbidden land of Tibet had become accessible finally to foreign visitors, and publications on Tibet and Central Asia, such as exploration books by Sir Francis Younghusband and Sir R.L. Stein, Sven Hedden, you've heard me talk about Sven Hedden here, right? And Nicholas Roerich, and Alexandra David Neal. I've got her book, Magic and Mystery in Tibet. I just looked over at my shelf, but I think it's in the office over at Malia's house. And Nicholas Roerich is someone we've talked about a lot here. And again, Sven Hedden. So he read all those writers, in those books. He'd become a pacifist after, as a boy, seeing the results of World War I and it going on around him. And the world, in the 30s, thanks to the fucking Nazis, the world was getting shittier than it, usually is. So, he decided to write this more pacifist themed book. And as it says here in the article, it was under these circumstances that Hilton crafted Lost Horizon, mainly as food for thought for Westerners who were disillusioned with world events and thirsty for an Oriental utopia. Um, it talks about the novel, which I already told you about. And the article goes quite into, but it goes back to its influences. Okay. And the author of the article points out that Conway, the main character in Lost Horizon, is likely based on Sir Francis Younghusband, the British Army officer who invaded and forcefully opened Tibet in 1904, but was later drawn to Oriental spirituality. He fell in love with the place. Younghusband was author of such works as The Heart of a Continent and India and Tibet. That's a book. India and Tibet is a title. Those are okay. His first book is 1898. The second book, 1910. And he was part of the foundation of the World Congress of Religions in London back in 1936. Then the second influence on Conway, the fictional character, was the real-life George Mallory, a young English mountain climber who died on an early attempt to climb Everest in 1924. Now, his frozen body was found in 1999. So people knew that Mallory had died, but they had never found his body until, 25 years ago. He was anyway, Francis Younghusband, the first guy I mentioned, who invaded and opened Tibet, was the chairman of the Mount Everest Committee in London, which sponsored the mountaineering expeditions in which Mallory participated. So they were contemporaries, knew each other. There was more here that I wanted to share with you about the in the article, he talks about since the 17th century, Jesuits had traveled throughout Asia not only as missionaries, but also to look for remains of ancient Christianity. They were especially inspired by the legend of the lost Christian kingdom of Prester John, somewhere in Central Asia. Prester John's a really interesting legend. You ought to look into that. There's a book on it that Adventures Unlimited Press puts out. One place that was of interest to them was Saparang in western Tibet. Father Perrault, who becomes the old High Lama of Lost Horizon novel, is modeled on one of the Jesuits, Antonio de Andrade, who founded a church in Tibet and in the region in 1625. Also, Ippolito de Sidri. I would have to look at these individual Jesuit gentlemen before I disparage them, but going into it, I'm cynical because, well, they're Jesuits. Orazio della Pena di Bil. Orazio della Pena di Bil, that's his name, who lived in the Capuchin mission in Lhasa until they were expelled. Imagine that, a Jesuit getting expelled from somewhere. Like the Jesuits who got expelled from the Americas, because what were they doing? Even the other priests of the church were complaining to the Vatican about the Jesuits and their narcissistic, mad obsession with taking control of everything. This is an order of assholes. I'm sorry. And then Abbe Huey, a French Jesuit who visited Tibet in 1845, and wrote a book about it. The Jesuits aren't stupid. In fact, I think they're like the commando scientists and technicians of the Catholic Church. It just makes them more dangerous because they're that smart. So there were all these influences that Hilton read and learned about. But I want to get to, gosh darn it, I want to get to, oh, there we go, right there. I think I missed him. Gosh darn it, guys, I think I missed. I want to. There's a guy who comes up in this who I talk about in Secret Missions 5, Veiled Destinies. And I got to find what page. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm going to have to scroll down. Forgive me, guys. Let me get back to it. It's a really interesting. Oh, here we go, right here. This is still that article that I linked. In 2002, two American mountaineers and entertainment industry lawyers, imagine that, Ted Vail and Peter Kilka, claimed that they had located Hilton's Shangri-La, but not in the Kunlun Mountains, as the book suggests, in western Tibet, but in the Sichuan province of China in far eastern Tibet. This is from Newsweek on 21 March 2001 and the Daily Telegraph, 29 July 2002. They had interviewed Jane Wyatt, the actress, one of the actresses in Capra's movie version of Lost Horizon from the 30s. And she had met Hilton during the making of the film. And she had learned, here it comes, the connection to my book, very thin. She had learned from Hilton during the making of the movie that the 1920s National Geographic articles of Joseph Rock, an Austrian-American botanist, had written about his travels in Yunnan and Sichuan provinces of southwestern China, where the main inspiration for Shangri-La is supposed to be. I found that interesting because Joseph Rock, I talk about, that really jumped out at me because I talk about him in Veiled Destinies, that's Secret Missions 5. In the chapters the parts that discuss where I think Joan of Arc's sword is or may have been vaulted, hidden in a vault at one point. And that was all that Palmyra Island stuff. But also how Joseph Rock has a connection to my favorite mystery man, Jan Patoshki's family. Okay. So it's interesting that here in the mix with this Shangri-La stuff and with Lost Horizon, we got Joseph Rock, the guy who's involved in the mix of my other research having to do with all that. So, isn't it? It shouldn't be a surprise. Yeah, I wanted to share that with you. Check out the article. But usually we associate Lost Horizon and Shangri-La with strictly the Tibetan culture, right, and such. But here it was showing up in the Vedic scriptures as well. Mention of Siddhi Ashrama, which is one of the inspirations for Shangri-La. And so, I had to jump into that. And I found on Valmiki Ramayana, let me give you, I want to start doing this more. I got to start doing this for Todd too. Todd, if you're watching, I'll get better at this for you. We try to put your links in the description box. But, I'm making a better effort here. So you can check that out, what I'm looking at now. In Book 1, Balakanda, the Youthful Majesties, Chapter 29, Rama and Lakshmana inquisitively inquired into the Siddha Ashrama, which is broken out into two words. An accomplished hermitage in the earlier chapter for which sage Vishvamitra informs about the heritage of that hermitage, for it once belonged to Vishnu in Vamna in the Vamna incarnation. Vishvamitra narrates about it and how Vamna, a dwarfish ascetic boy, eradicated evil on earth. And there's all sorts of pointing to the references in the Vedic scripture to Siddhashrama and the people there and what it's all about. So here's the thing. Make sure that I get back here. Going back to the Wikipedia entry, the context of this supernatural land, okay, be it Siddhashrama, Shambhala, what have you, Shangri-La in Hilton's novel, the context has been mentioned in many ancient scriptures along with 4 Vedas. The Siddhashram is described as a divine place in spiritual journey. In other words, what I've read about it is some of the sources say only the worthy can reach it because it's this interdimensional place, right? Now, here's what's interesting, because if you've seen the 1994, I think it is, the 94 movie The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, which is, I love that movie. It's a good movie. You'll remember that their hidden fortress or whatever, they cloud men's minds so that it's right there in the middle of the city, but nobody can see it. All they see is this vacant lot. Well, here's what's interesting. For a long time, when they discuss this city ashrama, they say that they're able to do that it's able to hide itself from human eyes and hide itself from modern technology, kind of cloak itself, even from things like satellites or what have you. That's kind of interesting. Let me see. It is also believed that while discharging their divine works in this universe, the spiritually empowered yogis remain in constant touch with Siddhashram, and they visit it regularly. Now, remember, these are spiritual yogis. These aren't bears at Jellystone Park, and they're not catchers for the New York Yankees. These are spiritual yogis, not Yogi Berra or Yogi Bear. Just for those, who are literarily challenged. Siddhashram is considered as the base of spiritual consciousness, the heart of divinity, and the mortification land of great rishis. Rishis being an accomplished and enlightened person. Okay. It is believed by Hindus and Buddhists that it is possible to get the divine power to enter Siddhashram by doing hard works through the sadhana procedure and following sadhana path. Okay, Siddhashram is considered to be a secret and mystical land deep in the Himalayas. See, just like Shangri-La, where it is said and believed by Hindus that great Siddha yogis, sadhus, and sages live. Siddhashram is believed to be the ashram of ancient saints, sages, and yogis of high order. That sounds kind of redundant to me. It is referred to in many Indian epics, the Veda, the Upanishads, the Puranas, including the Rig Veda. Now, going back to this religious, this world religions class I took, one of the books that he had us get was a book of the Upanishads. And, we read through that. And if you've seen The Razor's Edge, particularly the Bill Murray one, I don't know why, but I always remember this. When he's in, I think, France, and he's working in the mines, he comes across a gentleman who's either from England or Scotland, who he hasn't been to the East yet. He's just trying to find himself again after the war. And this gentleman he's working with, the English or Scotsman, I can't remember which one it is the one who tells him that he goes, oh, you got to go to the East, but he asks him, he goes, he says, tell him about the holy books. And I remember the look on his face and the tone of his voice. He asked Bill Murray, Larry Darrell, says, you haven't read the Upanishads? He's just shocked, so I've always remembered that. And Murray goes on to read the Upanishads, a copy given to him by this gentleman. Now, remember what I said about the theme of The Razor's Edge, and ultimately what the High Lama tells Conway, that he's going to have to engage with the world again. This gentleman from Great Britain, Bill Murray asks him, well, why? He goes to his house. The guys tell him about it in a bar after work, but then he goes to this gentleman's house there where he's working in the mines. And the man's family is around him, his little kids. And Bill Murray says, well, why didn't you stay? And the guy looks at him, and he's got his little kid on his knee, and he says, well, if I'd have stayed, I wouldn't have known this little one right here. And you get the point. That's kind of a foreshadowing to Bill Murray of what the Lama's going to tell him at the monastery. Well, you come here, you go through all this, you go through the journey, right, to make yourself capable of then returning to your own world, more capable to handle your own life, and to help others, and to be some type of guiding light. and to experience the being in the mix among them. Um, yeah, Lost Horizons. I love the Lost Horizon. I love the story, the novel, and the film. I love the idea. Conway's one of my favorite characters. Yeah, just find some place, get the hell out of here, away from all the assholes that you get tired of, and just go off and be in this paradise. But the message of the Razor's Edge also appeals to me very much because you have to. There's a lot of it's the Bodhisattva pledge, right? Where you will not go on to that next level until you've helped everyone else, as many people as you can, find enlightenment, right? And that's kind of that's what Larry Darrell does in The Razor's Edge. It's really, I recommend both the two films. Oh, by the way, the 1940s version with Tyrone Power is equal. Believe me, I love both versions. The 40s version with Tyrone Power of The Razor's Edge and the Bill Murray version. Okay. But it's an excellent companion to Lost Horizon. Now, the book, Razor's Edge, is more different from the film than Hilton's book is different from that film. Okay? Just be aware of that. But as far as the films go, watch them side by side. There was a 1970 Lost Horizon made. For God's sake, do not torture yourself with that piece of crap. Yes, Charles Boyer plays Father Peralta, the High Lama. Peter Finch, plays Conway, and he's a great Conway. But Peter Finch's better role as Howard Beale in Network. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. But forget the 1970 Lost Horizon. I've said that before. It's the 1930s version. That's the one you want. And then watch the Tyrone Power version of Razor's Edge and quickly follow it up with the Bill Murray version. They're really good companion stories, films to watch. So the idea of the place you go where, those who have figured it out and got it right, this has been a part of legend and lore of, spiritual literature and systems all along. And the idea that there might be a real place that these places are based on is very intriguing to me. Just as I'm very much interested in lost cities, forgotten civilizations, hidden places. Naturally, I'm interested in this topic of Shangri-La, Shambhala, and now Siddhashrama. Here's an interesting thing. That prefix, Siddh, okay, that's from the Siddhi, the Siddha, and they're enlightened beings, right? Now, here's what's interesting. There's a couple of sources that point out that, the word pixies, like a little pixie? I'm a little pixie! Like the little fairies that prance about. They didn't start out as little fairies that prance about. They were full-sized, human figures. Not exactly human. But the word pixie comes from a combination of the Picts. That's P-I-C-T, right? Remember the people that followed the Pict tradition painted themselves blue? This is, going back to the British Isles. The Picts hyphen and the Seeds, S-I-D-D-H-E. Ooh, Pict seed. Pict seed. Pixies. See what they did there? And the Siddha, guess who's associated with them? I'll wait. Yes, you guessed it. The Tuatha De Danann. So, isn't that interesting? All the stuff I've talked about the Tuatha De Danann here. And they're, the other people's research, other researchers who have pointed out that it looks like they've gone all around the world. And here you have this etymological connection all the way in India. Well, to me, that sounds like they're the same beings. So you had the cities, SIDDHs, in the British Isles. Now, hey, you know what? Could that explain a British fascination with India? That's not like that isn't chronicled throughout history. What I just said specifically, the curiosity about, hey, are our ancient roots in this faraway land of India somehow? I'm not the first to talk about that. Thank you, D. Dorothy. You pedantic martinet, you. Thank you, D. Dorothy. The pick she. So there we go. Thank you, D. I appreciate that. I think Malia was taking a nap right before. So I don't think Malia's here, but she's kind of zonked out. She's been real busy doing cool stuff around her new place, and it's been very hot. As you can see, I'm sucking back the water. So, me and my fascination with the East. When I was a kid, I had older cousins, and naturally they and everybody else were into the Beatles. And, the Beatles, particularly George, went through that was my first exposure to the mysterious, mystical East. It was as a kid seeing all this stuff connected when the Beatles went East and all these 60s music stars and some movie stars went over there to find themselves. And, I was a little kid during that time because being born in 63, right? I mean, in 1969, I was 6 years old. And of course, in movies, Gunga Din and stuff like that. But it did, something about it really clicked with me when I had that course I was telling you about. And it really is, it's a place I've got to see before I leave this shuffle off this mortal coil, as it were. I've got to go travel India. I am equally fascinated with all of South America, but I've at least gotten down there and seen some of it. Peru, Bolivia, a little bit of Colombia. So, I got to get there. And now I find out that through this Siddhashrama, Siddhashrama is how they pronounce it over there, but maybe it's Shiashrama. I really got to pull this thread and follow this, because now that I see that, there's a long connection. Let me share with you some more stuff I found. This one is from, these books are all on my shelf, of course. This is Alec McClellan's Lost World of Agadi, The Mystery of Vril Power. Now, look, there's a lot of spiritualist, New Age, hokey nonsense stuff in this book, okay? But remember, what do? We do not throw out the babies with the bathwater. But here's something I found. This is from McClellan. We next pick up details about the tunnel system in India, where, as I related much earlier in the book, the French Orientalist Louis Jacques first secured information on the kingdom of Agadi and presented it to Western readers. Not wishing to repeat what has gone before, just let me quote from Eric Norman's book, The Hollow Earth, which summarizes the Indian tradition. There is an ancient legend among the Hindus of India that tells of a civilization of immense beauty beneath Central Asia. Several underground cities are said to be located north of the Himalayan mountains, possibly in Afghanistan or under the Hindu Kush. Been to the Hindu Kush, been to Afghanistan more than a few times, and Kabul specifically. And Kabul is right there in the shadow, the foot of the western end of the Hindu Kush. I've flown over them many times. It can be pretty treacherous. Let me pause. Let me, as Stephen King writes in his book Dance Macabre, an annoying autobiographical pause. Um, you guys have heard me talk about the airplane flights in what's called a A100. If Flying Brian's still here, I know he can identify this plane for you guys faster. But it is a civilian version of the Hercules C-130, essentially. That's what I traversed. It's a prop plane. I traversed across the treacherous Hindu Kush many times. And you inevitably, because those peaks are jagged, and you get out there in the middle of it, and you hit some rough skies. And you should see the first timers, the office clerk type people. I was a gun-toting operational guy. We all just kind of sat there, drinking our coffee and reading our books while we're getting the turbulence, and all the clerk types are white knuckling on their seats. Of course, we realize the plane goes down in the Hindu Kush. You're probably dead upon impact, and if you live through the impact, they're not going to find you in the icy snow. You're going to die a slow, horrible death in the Hindu Kush. Oh, god damn, I did that more than once. For some money and kicks. Anyway, I digressed. This subterranean Shangri-La is inhabited by a race of golden people who seldom communicate with the surface world. See how close I was to all this? From time to time, they travel into our land through tunnels that stretch in many directions. Entrances to the tunnels are believed to be hidden in several of the ancient cities of the Orient. Tunnel entrances are said to be in Ellora and the Ajanta Caverns in the Chandur mountain range of India. Now, I write about Ellora and the Ajanta Caverns in Secret Missions 2, The Lost Expedition of Sir Richard Francis Burton, because when he was doing his intelligence collections and explorations of India, he went to those places. And, I got to get there. So he goes on to say, we have now almost honed in on the heart of the subterranean passageways, the city of Shambhala. We must trace the remaining part of it. Okay, so he's talking about, and he goes on to talk about Ferdinand Ossendowski and Nicholas Roerich. But McClellan mentions Shambhala, and he's talking about the region where this Siddhasrama is. Okay, so you find it even in the referenced in the nutty spiritualist literature of the day. Now, I looked in, this is a great series of books. My God, if you don't have these, David Hatcher Childress's original series of books, Lost Cities of series. It's the Lost Cities and Ancient Mysteries series. This volume is of China, Central Asia, and India. Interesting stuff, but I haven't got to a part where he talks about Siddhasrama. But definitely in the Mahabharata and the Upanishads and Vedic scriptures and stuff. So this is a thread that I'm going to definitely continue to pull. I just learned about Siddhasrama, as I said, this morning, and I had to just come on here and add it to the Lost Horizons little series that I'm doing here, because you guys hadn't had a Lost Horizons episode presented to you in a while, and it was just the thing. I think I was supposed to talk about this today because I just couldn't grasp. Nothing else was grabbing me. This really captured my imagination and attention, and I wanted to share it with you. Siddhasrama. Let's see what we find. Let's see what we find in the coming days, months, however long it takes to pull the Siddhasrama thread of Shangri-La type lore. If you're new here, this is what I do. I come on and I discuss things. I share with you the threads that I pull. If you're new here and you know something or more about this than I clearly do, please feel free to contact me. Leave a comment in the comments section on the video on how I can contact you. if you're someone watching this who's from India or Tibet or Nepal or such, oh boy, I really wish Hans Dietrich were here. I should have told him about this, but I will. He lived in Nepal for several years of his life. Go back last month, I think we did. It was last month, I think, the Dropa Stone episode. That's Hans. Anyway, I will now. My point is, if you know more about this than I do, and you watched and you enjoy the episode, please contact me. I want to learn more about it, and I want to get to India so bad that I'll tell you what, you guys. What I'm thinking is trying to find a sponsorship that would, provide me the means to go on an India trip, myself with Malia. And I just might pursue that because I got to get there. Absolutely have to get there. So, folks, let us go to questions. Please, as Johnny Side tells you in there, questions in all caps. And today we're staying strictly on topic. I don't want to answer questions about things that aren't about today's topic, okay? If it's important to you to ask me the question, send it, in the community tab at the page here at the Walter Bosley channel. And if you're interested, remember, before we go to questions, all my books, the best prices, the cheapest prices are at walterbosley.com/shop. So go there if you're interested in the books. So, and Nick will reiterate questions in all caps so they stand out, please. What is this? Let me. Why doesn't Nick have a wrench? We'll remedy that. So, okay, folks, I'm open for questions. Brian, you can have DMT. I don't like the aftermath. That idea doesn't appeal to me. So I either just drilled a hole in all your heads, with boredom, or I stunned you. Oh, here we go. Finally, a question. Oh. Holy effing crap. Michelis asks, are there currently people living in the historical Shangri-La geographical location? What is their... Well, see, we don't know, right? Because nobody has actually... We can't be sure that they found it. Now, you mean if generally there's people living in that areas, in the areas that it's believed to be in, there may or may not be, but I don't know the exact answer to that question. And you're right. What is their lore? What culture are they, right? I don't know. Very good question. Michelis, or Michalis, or Mikalu. Tessa 1111, was there something strange about Hilton after the book or the movie came out? I don't know. That's an interesting question. I didn't see anything mentioned about that. But I'm sure it had to have its impact on him, right? On his personal philosophy. And I mean, he's the man that wrote the book, right? But, I'll look into that, Tessa, because Lost Horizons is an ongoing series here. Kenneth Johnston asks, Walter, is there a connection between the character Larry Darrell and the Newhart characters Larry, Darrell, and Darrell? I don't know. Perhaps Bob or the other writers were a fan of The Razor's Edge. Philip Blair wants to know, when are we leaving for Kailash? Hey, man, as soon as we all get the money together. FVG Fugby or whatever, 342. Why is Shangri-La still a popular myth? For what I said earlier, people get weary of this world and this reality, and the idea of a wonderful place that you can escape to That appeals to a lot of people at some point in their lives. It's just the way of things. Nick Ann asks, what tie-ins, if any, have you found in the Talbot Mundy works? I did not specifically talk about the Talbot Mundy works. I only referred to the fact that he lived in San Diego for a while. But generally speaking, these are the kinds of things that are talked about in Mundy books, which I highly recommend. If you guys recall, they're a little too... You know what? I published... My company, my brand has released, as some of you know already, very nice editions of 4 Mundy books. Let me get them so you newbies can see them. I'm not sure if they're at walterbosley.com yet. I got to climb up over my bed and reach all the way to the corner on a high shelf. Chili, lay down. Come on, girl. Ow. Oh, that hurt. Chili, come on, girl. Lay down. Gonna let you out in a little bit. But as you can see, I kind of did a theme. I call them the white covers, the white books. Talbot Mundy, Windows of the World, Caves of Terror, which I've talked about here in an older episode from last year, The Nine Unknown, and The Eye of Zaytun. This is an Afghanistan novel right here, but they're like in a set. They're really nice editions, and folks, these are affordable editions. Really, they look really nice on the shelf. And my label published these. So go to walterbosley.com, or I think in that case you'd go to lulu.com, lulu.com, and put in Walter Bosley and Talbot Mundy and look for these. Buy my editions. Don't buy other people's editions. They're going to be more expensive, and mine look better on the shelf. So there you go. Anyway, there's a shameless plug for classic reprints. Oops, let me scroll back up because I think I missed some things. There we go. Easy Gamer 89, Walter Bosley. Do you think there may be a secret society of monks or something that protect the secret of Shangri-La? I'd like to think so. It's logical. I think there might very well be. Yeah, kind of like Buddhist Templars or something. Kind of like those guys in Indiana Jones 3, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Remember those guys with the particular type cross tattooed on their chest, and the guy opens it up, and they're protecting Indy, but they're also protecting the secret of the Grail. It's kind of and by the way, what you're talking about there is talked about, I believe, in definitely in The Nine Unknown, a group like that, but also Caves of Terror. Get these editions. They are classic reprints of the original Mundy editions. They're wonderful. Easy Gamer again says, Walter Bosley, you should do a whole video session on Nicholas Roerich. You know what? You're absolutely right. That's coming. Thank you, Easy Gamer. That's coming. Yeah, folks, if you're asking questions, they're not in all caps. They got to be in all caps because a lot of side questions, because I see Mick P. Scientific Mystic asking a thing if there's a theosophic connection like Blavatsky. Mundy kind of moved in those circles. He lived in San Diego, which is where La Jolla is, where the theosophical compound of Tingley, Madame Tingley, was at and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, theosophy is in the mix with all this stuff. But yeah, Mick P, I think you're new here. The reason I asked for all caps is there's a lot of side conversations that goes on in the live chat, and in all caps tells me you're talking to me. You talking to me? You talking to me? This way I know you're talking to me, and you're asking me a question. So yeah, all caps, and that's, I'm not trying to be an asshole. It helps me see the questions and the comments. It doesn't have to be a question. It has to be on topic. Even if it's in all caps, if it's not on topic, I'm going to politely ignore it. Tessa 1111, we all hunt for beauty and peace, the hope of Shangri-La. Correct. Absolutely. Good way to put it. I don't know how to pronounce that. Marial 577. Have you seen the old Leonard Nimoy in Search of episode about Shangri-La? You know what? I probably did when it first aired, and I was a young lad. But Somebody tell me if the original Nimoy In Search Of series is being aired or streamed somewhere. Whoops, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, Malia. Is Malia here? There she is. There she is. Yeah, the Monday books, yeah, they're only at lulu.com, not on walterbosley.com, but we will probably eventually get them over to walterbosley.com. Remember, folks, please don't buy, even though some of the books I publish can be found on Amazon. I only did that for to facilitate some other things as a publisher, but don't buy our books at Amazon if you can avoid it, because those greedy bastards take all the royalty, essentially. We only get like pennies on the dollar. I'll give an example. There's one particular book, we make like 30 something cents. I want you to think about it. If we sold 1 million copies of that particular book on Amazon, we'd get $30,000. Now, to me, that's some BS. Okay. So Bezos can build his penis rockets. Ugh. Speaking of guys building rockets, we saw the SpaceX launch right in the sky above Malia's house last night. That was really cool. There's so many cool things at Malia's house, not the least of which is Malia herself. But yeah, get them at walterbosley.com. And the ones that aren't at walterbosley.com, yeah, you can get them at Lulu, because, they don't hog all the royalty. Tessa 1111. The Celestine Prophecy book series deals with Shangri-La. Oh, I never read the books. I think I saw the movie that was made, but that's interesting. Okay. And WP Jen Lighten for Truth 2 also asks, have you read The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield? He talks of Shangri-La. I just might have to, because, there's always some nugget of useful information. Oh, Nick N can provide that In Search Of episode. Thank you, Nick. And you know what, Nick? Feel free to just send a link where I can watch it if you want. Okay. So, yeah, folks, this Lost Horizons discussion is probably one of the real favorite things I do here. I would like to have more of these. And I am bringing back the Walter Bosley Reads Stuff series. Many of you have asked. And I'm going to be doing, now that Malia's settled into her new place and we got her office set up, she and I have talked about me doing pre-recorded episodes and talks. So I want to produce more content. She agrees. And we're even going to expand to some other platforms. We're looking at having a presence on Rumble too, because, there's some things we can talk about and the way we can present over there that you can't hear, because, YouTube, or remember I mentioned the whiny bitch in Lost Horizon? And YouTube can be that way too. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. Well, Tess 1111 says there is one in the Celestine, I'm assuming the Celestine Prophecy series, called Shangri-La. Philip Blair, Mathieu Ricard, the real-life person whose own story resembles these stories, son of French aristocracy, disappeared into the Himalayas for decades. Press labeled him the happiest man alive. I have never heard of him, but thank you for that name, Philip, because I'm going to look him up. Will what be full of books? Michaelis. Michalou. Oh, for effing sake. Nick N, need to figure out or find a Lost Horizon model kit. Well, the plane in the 1970 version, it looks like Oh, the DC-3 or the C-47, the military. I think it's a C-47, and I've thought about getting a C-47 and painting it up Lost Horizon style. In the first one, I don't know. It might be like one of those versions of the Ford Tri-Motor, or I think the Ford Tri-Motor was a version of something else, something like that. Oh, by the way, a little bit of trivia for you. In Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when you see that plane crash in the snow, wait a minute, because that's a different. I'm trying to remember. In one of the Indiana Jones movies, they use the footage from Lost Horizon, the 1970 version, because obviously it's in color. Michaelis. Will you read the full book aloud? I find many books out of print because people kindly do that for us. I just might. Malia's probably going, oh God, he's committing to reading a whole book. Oh, I hate when he commits to things. D. Dorothy Pepinot says, I don't want to be pedantic, but after spending years with Tibetans, D. Dorothy, how long have you been a subscriber here and showing up in my live chat? And how come, is this the first time you've told me this? That you spent several years with Tibetans? Did I know that already? Okay. Malia, we need to start picking D. Dorothy's brain on that. But you know what? You probably did say it. And I'm like 7 different places at once. But D. Dorothy, seriously, I want to hear more about this. Okay, let's go to our good friend Soulite, US expat, who's been around the Walter Bosley thing here on YouTube for many years. Says the YouTube channel Hemispheres Institute remote viewed Shambhala. I'm not sure how accurate their data is. Interesting. Okay. I'll have to check that out, Soulite. Thank you. Oh, we got plenty of time. We're doing good here on the time. So, yes. So the Talbot Mundy, and there's going to be more coming. In fact, I've got. Well, I apologize. Eye of Zaytun is not released yet. It just is one button click away. But it will be released soon. But I'm going to be releasing other Mundy novels in the series. You can be able to get, the whole thing. Yeah, this is not in all caps, but I agree with this. Soulite Expat says, we got to hear the stories from D. Dorothy. Oh, Jesus. Malia, what do you think about having D. Dorothy on? D. Dorothy, would you come on and tell us about your experience with Tibetans? Because that would be cool. Yeah, Malia's reminding me. Yes, you knew that. Well, now I got to act on it. D. Dorothy, let us know if you would be willing to come on and share your stories. Malia, I want to arrange doing a live from the Himalayan restaurant in Big Bear. I'll bet they'd go for that because it's exposure, it's advertising. Yeah, I see that happening. Of course, then I remember Malia will just not have to participate because she said she didn't like the atmosphere there. So it looks like it would just be me all by myself. That's okay because they got great food there, and that would just be more for me. I think I could talk Malia into dining at the Himalaya with me if we're going to be doing the show there. I have to back off of the rice because of doctor's orders. So we went to our favorite local Indian restaurant in Redlands, the Naan Cafe. If you're in the Inland Empire area, we highly recommend the Naan Cafe. That's like the bread, Naan. Excellent little Indian place. But I got a wrap, a chicken tandoori wrap, and oh, I didn't need the rice. It was filling and it was so delicious. Malia, okay, well, Malia, you're welcome to wait outside at the Himalaya while I, Walter Bosley, here of the Walter Bosley channel, do an episode from the Himalaya. Flying Brian Myers, I do Tai Chi and Qigong in Balboa Park with several Tibetans, and they all make reference to Shangri-La. Really, I wonder, is it a cultural commonality? Once again, one of my friends doing some cool shit, it doesn't tell me about it. Now, Brian, you do Tai Chi. I do Chai Tea. You do Tai Chi. I do Chai Tea. And you do Qigong. I don't know. Malia, do you do Qigong? I don't know. Can I say that word? Mr. Bosley made a reference to the you-know-what-I wanna. D. Dorothy says, I'm not ready. I don't have the technology to do it. I'll call you sometime. D. Dorothy, we can do just audio. So think about that. You know what? Malia, my executive producer here, will contact you and we'll work out the details. I'm just the talent. I'm just the host, the talent. I hope you guys don't mind my ice cream, my sherbet orange shirt here that's wrinkly because it was really hot and this is comfortable. But we can arrange that on the phone. Easy Gamer 89, Walter Bosley. You should also do a video about the Sami people. They are quite interesting. I know. You're right. Our friend Daniel List, dark journalist, has piqued my interest about the Sami people. And I think I'm trying to remember who else talked about the Samis. I don't know if it's Julia K or Hans Dietrich. Somebody was talking about the Samis. Philip Blair, what are some popular dishes at the Himalaya restaurant? What's not? I got one time the I forget what it's called, but it's the big platter where you got like a sampler of. I'm a carnivore. This was in the pre-cancer days, so I have to be a little more in control of myself now. But my gosh, it's Nepalese food and Indian food at the Himalaya restaurant in Big Bear, California. Look it up online. It's cool. In fact, you know what? I've been a URL link sharing guy on this episode. Let me share the link with you. Hold on. And hey, I know, Flying Brian. Here's what we'll do. We'll arrange for you to come up, and since Malia is a stick in the proverbial mud, you can come with me. We'll go to the Himalaya, and you'll be in the episode with me. And little Miss Picky Pants can, just wait outside. I'm going to catch hell for that comment. Oh, here we go. I'm going to share the link, right? Oh, it's easy. I could have just typed that, for crying out loud. Jiminy crickets. Little Miss Picky Pants. I'm going to catch it for that one. She's clearly not particular. She hangs out with me. Okay, where is that? Okay. D. Dorothy says, try the momos, Walter. Meat or veg. I've had momos from a Thai restaurant before. And yes, indeed, they're good. Samosas. That was weird. So, yeah, what we'll do is, Brian, will arrange for Qigong. Thank you, Akaster. It's pronounced Qigong. Thank you. I appreciate the correction. Anytime I get crap wrong, you guys, just tell me. I don't mind. So, to go back to Brian does Tai Chi and I do Chai Tea, and if it's Qigong, is there such a thing as Chai Bong? I don't know. I'm not a toker. Here we go. Could you please put the name and authors of the books you're citing in your description? That's how I found them last time. Yeah. I'll do that later on. I'll add that. Yeah, Brian, we're gonna make this happen. There we go. The Himalaya restaurant also has a really cool shop next door where they sell apparel and trinkets and jewelry and things from that part of the world. Akaster says, you're welcome. Jeep up the gid work. You got it. I will Jeep up that gid work. I like that phrase. Don't correct it. We're going to Jeep up. So, what are we looking at here? We're down to 3 minutes, folks. Down to 3 minutes. If you're new here, thank you for being here, and please come back. Go check out the catalog of the videos, all the live episodes that we've done, and the playlists. And please go to walterbosley.com/shop to get the books, folks. That is the best place to get the books. Don't think that if you go to Lulu and it's more expensive, that doesn't mean we get more royalty. Don't think that. My royalty's the same, except in Amazon. Amazon steals our royalty. Okay? Forget buying my stuff at Amazon. But come to walterbosley.com/shop for the Walter Bosley books. That's the books I've written. That's the best price, and I don't get gypped. walterbosley.com/shop. People are doing it already, and they're really liking it. That's where, again, you can get the Walter Bosley books. And if you're interested in the Talbot Mundy books, there's going to be more. Buy the whole set. These are really affordable. But these you have to get at lulu.com, Lost Continent Library shop. But here's what you do. Put in the Talbot Mundy, the name, Caves of Terror, The Night Unknown, Winds of the World. The other one isn't released yet. But you put in those titles and look for these. Look for the Lost Continent Library editions. Don't buy anyone else's edition. Shame on you. You want these. And there's going to be more delightful Mundy. See, we got one more question from Juan Carlos Gonzalez Jr. Walter, have you ever read Frank Capra's autobiography? No, I have not. He talks about hitting a career slump and about being visited by a mysterious stranger in his house. Oh, hell yes. Thank you, Juan Carlos. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. That sounds really, really cool. Thank you for that lead, Juan Carlos. Okay, well, folks, we're at the hour and a half point, and an hour and a half with Walter Bosley is enough for anyone. And we are planning a Saturday show with Malia and Walter. And we will post what it's going to be about as soon as we decide. And I want to thank all of you for being here. If you're new, please come back. Um, and thank all the regulars and all you folks that like the channel here. And I think that's about it for tonight. And please go check out Lost Horizon, the 30s version. Ignore the 1970 version. Go see the Frank Capra. Find it streaming. Get a copy of it. Frank Capra, Lost Horizon. I think it's 1935 is when the movie was made. And please watch both versions of The Razor's Edge. Watch the Tyrone Power version from, I think it's 1941 or 42, something like that. And watch the Bill Murray version from the 80s. I think you'll like both of them if these kinds of stories interest you. And folks, thanks again. I'm out of here, and we'll see you. Malia and I will see you on Saturday.